to you, Coach Reimer. Floor is yours, sir. I will also make you the host, so that way, for if you have presentations you want to do, you can go ahead and get that taken care of.
Yep. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. Is it just the four of us right now?
As of right now, yeah.
Okay, all right. You guys don't need to mute yourselves. Please ask questions as we go along. I'm going to be really informal here because that's the way I typically roll, the way I like to do things. So I'll just give you a little background about myself, and Bendel, thank you for the kind words. I think my wife would disagree with you on a lot of things right now. We just sold our house and we're moving on Monday, so there's a reason I'm getting out of the house as quickly as possible today, because we're at each other's throats right now. And we just celebrated 24 years of marriage, and I don't know if we're going to get to 24 years in 1 week the way we're going right now. So I've been here at St. Cloud State for a long time. Help me out with pronunciation. Is it Menelik?
It's Menelik, yes.
Menelik. Okay, where are you at, Menelik?
So I live in Toronto, in Canada,
right.
And I coach. I coached at a school called Fleming College, which is in the Canadian College League. We've just suspended sport until January 1st, 2021. And I was technically on an interim basis, so I don't know what my future holds right now, so to speak.
Yikes.
Yeah.
How about you, Matt? Where are you?
I'm in Kansas. I've been coaching at an NAIA school for 10 years now.
Which NAIA?
Southwestern College.
Okay. Are you the header?
Yes.
Okay. What town is that in Kansas?
It's in Winfield. We're about an hour from Wichita,
okay.
And 30 minutes from maybe 15 minutes from the Oklahoma border, and 2 hours from Oklahoma City.
Okay, so you're way down there then.
Yeah.
What are your guys, do you know what you're doing this fall or anything?
No, we hear more from our school here in about 5-6 days on like when we're going to actually start. And then NAIA, we're still waiting for them to decide with football. But football, they said if half the institutions are ready to go, then they're going. They're going to have a season. So that's kind of what we know right now.
They've cut back some of the games, though, right? They're only going to have 9 football games, I heard.
They're going to have 9 football games. They haven't said anything about basketball, but I'm kind of curious about that as, with all the non-conference games and everything. We have 13 teams in our conference, so.
Yeah, they cut us to 22. So we lost all of our non-conference games, and we were going to play one NAIA this year. And so I don't know if you were playing any D2s, but I would guess you're going to lose some of those if you had those.
Yeah, this is the first year I didn't schedule any D2s,
okay.
So
just a little bit about my background here. And again, just feel free to ask questions, and I'll kind of, once I get through my little spiel here, I'll kind of direct it any way you guys want to go. I've got several things written down and things that we can go over, but really it's up to you what you guys want to cover here. And I'm going to have questions for you guys because I want to learn too. I grew up in a small town in Northeast Iowa and went to a D3 school in Iowa called Central College. Played for 2 years and then realized it was not a good relationship between the head coach and the assistant coach. And I could have been the 15th man on a 15-man team, sit at the end of the bench, or I realized I could have been a student assistant, sat right next to the head coach. And so I did that for the last 2 years, was a student assistant, and it was really valuable for me. It was almost like a GA training. I got to do travel, scouting reports, all that stuff. So it was really huge for me. And then I taught high school and coached high school for 4 years in Minnesota, was an assistant coach, and was fortunate to be part of a really good program that was on the rise when I got there. And then I came to St. Cloud State as a GA 25 years ago, and I've never left. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Office Space, but I'm kind of like Milton from Office Space. I think they fired me 10 different times, but I keep showing up, and I've got the red stapler, so they keep me around. So
yeah.
Just don't burn the place down, Coach.
Exactly. I tried, but it's a break here, so I can't burn it down.
Good reference.
But yeah, I've been here for 25 years, so I've been very fortunate from that standpoint to be very stable, which isn't always the case. But it's also been, means that I don't have a wide variety of experiences at different schools. You know, I worked for the same guy for 17 years as his assistant, and this will be my 7th year as the head coach now. And you know, so in some ways, I don't have some of the broad-based experiences that maybe other guys do that have bounced around a little bit more. But for me, I knew it was what was important for my family, that was going to be a big thing for us. And so when I was coaching high school, I went to a coaching clinic down in the cities, and John Calipari was the head coach at UMass, and no one had heard of him at that time. He was presenting, and then Mike Bray from Duke was an assistant at Duke at the time. Now he's at Notre Dame. He was presenting, and I was wearing a T-shirt from a guy by the name of Clay Mosier. Clay grew up in Minnesota, was an assistant coach for Valvano at North Carolina State, and then was working at the Skyforce at the Sioux Falls Skyforce. And I went and worked his camps because I knew somebody, and I was wearing his shirt, and those guys were going out for a beer afterwards, Bray and Calipari. So I did, you know, I was young, stupid, and single, and just followed those guys to the bar and had a beer with them. And Mike Bray asked me one question about, you know, Clay Mosier. I told my one Jim Valvano story, and the rest of the night I got drunk with those guys. And then Calipari had me come out and work his camps for like 3 summers in a row. And it was eye-opening for me to see that lifestyle. And I knew at that time I just started dating my wife, and I'm like, okay, I got a choice. I can chase the Division I dream and you know, start out as ground zero where you're a film guy or whatever, or I can stay with my girlfriend, marry her, and you know, try the path that I'm on currently right now. And I chose wisely. If I'd have gone that route with Calipari, I would have never married my wife, and I wouldn't trade that and our 2 kids for anything. So in the 25 years I've been here at St. Cloud State, we've gone through a lot of changes. We used to be in what was called the North Central Conference, which was probably the premier Division II league at the time. We had the North Dakota State, South Dakota State. We were all Northern Colorado, Nebraska, Omaha. All those schools have now gone up to Division I. But that was a war back in those days, and that was before states got over-recruited, you know, because of AAU. AAU was just starting, and so we got a lot of kids that would be low to mid-major kids to stay because they're close to home and because they just got overlooked. And so we were very fortunate, and now we're recruiting a different caliber of kids because, you know, we used to beat South Dakota State and North Dakota State all the time for kids. Now we can't touch them because they have the Division I tag and all that stuff. And so we have to kind of have had to change our recruiting approach a little bit. And so that's undergone a lot of changes over the last 25 years in terms of where we started to where we are today. And, you know, Matt, you being a college coach now too, and Malik, I don't know how it works up there as well, but the biggest change I've noticed is that it's really hard to build a program now. It's like you're building a team every year. And It's almost like you're becoming a junior college coach, and no disrespect to that, but it's just like we still need to get 3 kids right now. One of them's a walk-on. And we got offers out, but kids are so much slower to make decisions today. And the transient nature of kids makes it a little bit difficult, you know. So we've gone into Chicago a lot more. We've gone international way more. In fact, we just lost an international kid that, you know, was a freshman this past year, but he's going to stay back in New Zealand, signed a pro contract. You know, I think the COVID thing scared him a little bit. And you know, I also think he just realized that he wanted to be home, and being away from home that far is tough. So there's a lot of changes that have gone on in terms of the recruiting and the way you build your programs, in my opinion, and it's not necessarily been easier. And then St. Cloud itself has undergone quite a change in the demographic range in the last 25 years. You know, we used to be a predominantly white German Catholic community, and now we've had an influx of a lot of different societies move in here, and we have a large Somali population, and we've had other ethnicities come in that have kind of changed the dynamics of what St. Cloud looks like. And we hear from more than one person that, well, alums in particular, well, this isn't the St. Cloud I remember. And, well, that's okay that you don't remember. It's different. You know, change is good. We can't have the same thing over and over again. But that's been an area that I've seen a lot of change in our area as well, and it changes your recruiting focus as well. So that's a little bit about my start and how I got to where I am here today. Any questions before I jump into some other things?
Sorry, Coach, just on that last point, have you found that to be a challenge to be able to recruit the typical kind of player that used to go there now based upon the new dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Menelik, what, and again, part of it is I'm different from my boss. And my boss was the greatest guy to work for ever. And he's a great coach. He will be they'll have his name on the floor here eventually. But we were probably, and again, I'm not trying to stereotype or anything like that, but we were probably known as the tough, hard-nosed white kids. That's what we were known as.
Right.
And local kids. We very rarely, Minnesota, Wisconsin, that was about it. We'd get an occasional transfer, stuff like that. Those type of kids, it's a lot harder for us to recruit now because of the demographic things. St. Cloud has had some issues with tensions and stuff like that. And so sometimes I think parents look at, well, is it really safe in that area? And so we've had to broaden out. And an example I'll use is we've had a couple kids that we've gotten out of Germantown, Wisconsin. And Germantown is a very upscale suburban neighborhood, very similar. Mendel, for you, it's the Hopkins of Minnesota. Germantown is. We can go get those kids, no problem. They come visit, they love it. We can't get a kid from Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, Wayzata, or Hopkins to even come visit us. Your typical upper scale suburban places because of the perception of what St. Cloud has become. And it's a negative perception, but it's not a real perception. That's the problem. And it's hard to change that. We had a junior day last fall where we got 4 kids from these suburban communities come up here, and the dad's like, wow, I never knew it was like this. Well, of course, yeah, that's why you got to give us a chance. There's a reason why we're trying to recruit you, and I wouldn't bring a kid here that I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing my own kids to. But that's the battle that we're fighting right now. So that's why we've had to branch out to Chicago more, in Milwaukee more. And again, we can get the same profile kid from those schools in Milwaukee and Chicago that would make up a Minnesota suburban area, but we can't get the Minnesota suburban kids to visit.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else? Welcome, Daniel and rising coaches. If you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in here at any point in time. It's going to be very informal. I just thought I'd go into next kind of how we run things from when our kids get on campus in the fall until we get through the spring. So we're allowed, once they get on campus, we're allowed to work out with them for 4 hours a week on the court. And then we get 4 hours off the court with them, whether weight room, conditioning, those types of things. So typically what we do is we try to go 1 hour a day, Monday through Thursday on the court. And initially right away, we'll do individual workouts. So we might have them in groups of 2 or 3, 4 at the most. A lot of it is just trying to figure out what did they do over the summer? Did they do what we asked them to do? And kind of get their conditioning built up. And then we'll mix in maybe 1 team practice a week there. So we'll have 2 to 3 individuals and then 1 team practice a week where we're trying to start indoctrinating our team stuff. And we'll do that the first couple weeks. And then as the further we get into it, then we might go to 2 team workouts, 2 individuals, 1 or 2 individuals, until as we get right up to October 15th when our restrictions are lifted. Then we're going pretty much all full team workouts at that point in time. We've got a good group of guys. I really like the group we have right now, and they're self-starters. And so we talk to them all the time about, if you only do what we ask you to do, you're never going to make it. You're not going to be successful. You have to put in extra work. And I've gone back and forth about having them, you you got to make 100 threes 3 times a week, and you got to text me what you did and free throws. Part of me is like, okay, I can check up on that, and at least I know they're doing it. The other part of me is like, if I have to tell them to do that, is what am I really, are they the type of kids that are going to help us be good down the road? And so I struggle with that part in terms of how much do we push them outside of our practice times, and how much do we give them the freedom to show us that how hard they want to work. That takes us into practice then, and when we get to October 15th, then we can go 6 days a week. Almost never do we go over 2 hours. You know, again, I learned that from the 2 previous guys I've worked for, is that if you can't get it done in 2 hours, you're not going to get it accomplished that day, and you're going to have negative returns, and that's when injuries start happening. You know, so in our 2-hour time block, we have 10 minutes of stretching in there. We'll have 5 to 10 minutes of free throws at the end of practice. And so really we're only going hard for about an hour and a half, but when we go hard and we don't waste time. I'm a big believer in, you know, maybe spending a minute to talk about a drill or whatever it is we're doing, and then we get into it and we go. And if guys aren't picking it up, you know, maybe we have an assistant pull them off to the side and try to help them, but we want to get things going as quickly as possible and not waste time. I hate guys standing around watching practice. So when we break down, you know, typically I've got a full-time assistant and a part-time assistant, and the 3 of us will take different groups and we'll just rotate the groups around. Or if what we're doing is more conducive to just 2 groups, then I'll just kind of stand in the middle and go group to group and watch. But a lot of the times we'll have 3 groups of 4 to 5 guys, and we rotate them through as we do our breakdown stuff. And typically the first 45 minutes is all breakdown, you know, defensive breakdown typically for the most part, some rebounding stuff. We always start out with a transition drill after we stretch just to get the blood flowing. We'll do 10 minutes of shooting, and then it's all defense up until about halfway through practice. And then we have, every day we have a 10-minute segment of position work where one of my assistants he's the post coach, so he'll take the post guys, and I let him do whatever he wants to do with those guys. And then whoever's coaching our perimeter takes the perimeter guys, same thing, 10 minutes of perimeter stuff, and let them work through those guys. And we obviously meet ahead of time and talk about what they're going to do, but I let those guys, hey, this is your time to be in charge of that group. If there's something specific I want them to work on, I'll let them know. Otherwise, I have those guys kind of be in charge of that. And then when we come back out of that, then we get into the 5-on-5 stuff. And the last half of practice is pretty much, you know, all 5-on-5, whether it's, you know, again, whether we're working on defensive segment or an offensive segment, zone segment, whatever, full court. But that's typically how we break up our practice schedules. And then at the end, we have some sort of free throw with pressure, so that they have to do something, so that and they run or do push-ups if they don't meet the goal or whatever our goals are that day for free throws. So, questions on that?
Coach, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Coach, what's your thought process on when you're introducing stuff? You know, you talked about more individual instruction and seeing where they're at. What's your thought process on introducing offense or defense first, or both at the same time?
That's a great question, because I've heard a lot of guys do it different ways. You know, I heard a guy talk about he spends the first week putting in all his offensive stuff right away, so then their defense has something organized to practice against. And then he spends the next 2 weeks just all on defense. Typically what we do is when we start with our defense, it's all the one-on-one type stuff. It's a footwork. How are we going to close out? Are we forcing baseline? You know, because we've done it in several different ways over the years. We've forced baseline. We've steered or we call it steer the arc or guard the arc, where we don't care if they go towards the middle as long as it's going towards half court and not towards the paint. So it depends on our group, and that's part of the stuff that I try to figure out those first couple of weeks is this a group that we know we can force baseline and trap and do those types of things? So it's individual stuff with the defense part there, Matt. Offensively, we're working again on the one-on-one stuff. Is what kind of concepts are we going to be able to introduce? We do a lot of ball screen stuff, a lot of handoff into ball screen stuff, and then a lot of back cut. We do have a couple screening actions, but most of our stuff is based off of being able to break people down off the bounce. And so that's kind of how we start things. So it's more individual defensive and offensive concepts, and then we'll get into the team stuff. The other thing that we do, Matt, is early on, we will not allow them to switch, that they have to be able to fight through screens, and we have a set of rules. If the screen occurs on the help side, they can shoot the gap. If it occurs on the ball side, then they got to get through it man side of the screen, or we call fight through man side. We'll go through all of our different ball screen coverages, but the reality is once we get into the season, we try to switch everything. But I want them to have to learn to do it the hard way first, in case we run into issues where switching isn't going to be an issue for us. So we do it as a combination of both, Matt. We introduce both defense and offense at the same time. We start with individual and then get to the team stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question or.
Does. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Coach. So by starting with everything else other than switching and then moving into switching later on, how well have you found that? Like, so that's actually what I do. I'm just wondering how well you have found that teaching philosophy to work. Like, do you see, because I actually personally think switching is probably the easiest coverage to adapt to, and being able to play everything else first, there's real value in it, because when you play other teams that play screens differently, you've played against that in practice. So you kind of get an idea of what works for you offensively against their different defenses. But like, how well do you find that your players have adapted to that method of teaching? And like, looking back in retrospect, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, no, I think that's why we do it that way, Malik, is one, you're right, when you're practicing against other teams that don't switch, it makes it easier for your guys to understand how they should guard it in practice. But two, I think what it does is it allows you to be able to mix up your defenses. Maybe we're not going to switch everything. Maybe we're going to go into a game and they've got a kid that's averaging 25 a game, and we're going to lock onto him, we call it, where no catch. And so they've learned to fight through screens at that point in time. And when we lock onto a guy, typically we'll designate our best on-ball defender, and we'll say, hey, Caleb, you're locked on. You have no help responsibility. You're not switching, but you got to get through screens now, man. And then that also helps our guys that are maybe involved in a screen with that kid, that they know how to extend it. They know how to do that when they're not switching. So that's why we approach it that way. It gives us the flexibility, I think, to mix things up as we go through. And then, again, you never know as you go through the season, maybe injuries force you and you have to play a lineup that doesn't allow you to switch. Now it's easier to go back and, okay, we've worked on this stuff before. Maybe we haven't done it in a week or two. We have, a couple of days where we're going to work on this, going back to not switching and covering screens the way that we cover them. So I just think it gives you a little bit more flexibility that way. That's why we do it. And I don't think I would change much. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but we've scrimmaged some of our conference teams every now and then, the teams that we only play once a year. So we have two divisions in our league, a north and a south half, and we play, we're in the north, so we play everybody in the north twice, everybody in the south once. And so there's a school that's not that far from us that, even though we only play them once during the year, and we've decided to scrimmage each other just because of location, and it gives you a good feel for, hey, this is what we're going to be playing against night in and night out. Is this going to work? Well, it has so happened a couple of years ago when we scrimmaged them, we were going to play them within a month. It's just the way the conference schedule worked. So when we scrimmaged them, we didn't switch anything. We just played it straight. And then, it was a very close scrimmage. And then when we played them a month later and we switched everything, even though they knew we were going to do that, they still weren't quite as prepared for it, and we blew them out. And so I think, there's that aspect of it too. And when we switch, we try to switch for pressure. We try to create turnovers. We try to have our defense create our offense. We're never going to lead the league in defensive field goal percentage. We're never going to lead the league in points allowed, but we are always in the first top 2 or 3 in the league in turnovers forced and scoring, because I think our defense helps us create our offense.
Thank you.
So, quick question for you, Coach. With transitioning back into opening now, what is the approach, especially this year, post-COVID, for you guys?
So, great question. I was just meeting with our administration about this. The NCAA is actually going to let us work with our guys this summer once they open up campuses, which they've never allowed us to do before because we lost the spring. Problem for us is our guys are spread out all over, and most of our guys don't have leases, year-round leases in St. Cloud. I've also got a couple of kids whose parents are very concerned about COVID. And so you've got to balance all that stuff together. So during the summer, it's going to be, once we do open up campus, which I expect in the next couple of weeks we will, I can't force guys to come back. One, we don't have summer school. We don't pay for summer school. But we typically have them come back and work our camps. Well, we don't know what our camps are going to look like right now in July and August. I would love for those guys to come back, and I know a couple of them will, and we can work out with them, but it's going to be a little bit different, Mendel, in that when we've required kids to come back and work camp, it's been a great week to have them around. We do some things that we can do during that time. Can't do that this summer just because I know some parents are concerned about it, and I'm not going to force kids to do something that their parents aren't comfortable with. You know, my personal feelings, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've got my senior in college and senior in high school. They both graduated. We asked them what they wanted. They wanted to go to Orlando, to Disney and Universal. We booked a trip a long time ago. We went last week. Obviously, Disney was closed, but we went to Universal the last 2 days, and we don't have any problem being out in crowds. We're not concerned because our risk factor is next to zero as our immediate family, and we don't have contact with people at risk. So for me, I'm on one end of the spectrum, but I can certainly respect people that are on the other end of the spectrum that might be concerned because they have underlying health issues. I mean, I have a brother that's going through chemo right now, so he can't see me, and I can't see him, which is fine because I don't, whatever, brothers fight and all that. But it's just everybody's different with that right now. So this whole COVID stuff, I think as coaches, we have to be way more like, hey, okay, it's going to be different this year. I can't require you to do stuff that normally we would view as a strong commitment to being part of the program, and can't penalize them or think differently to them because that's going on or they feel that way.
So a follow-up to that then, being that you can't get in touch, is there expectations then for them while they're away, stuff they have to do? Did you double up on the expectations for them, being that you can't really see them? Or is it just, okay, you know what you need to do to be ready? We expect you to do that.
So there have been a few good things come out of this thing, just because you've had to kind of rearrange how you do things. I mean, recruiting wise, now we do these Zoom things. I got one tonight at 6:30 with a kid. And quite frankly, it's not a bad way to do recruiting, because when you have a kid come visit campus, you're with that kid all day. Or if it's a 2-day visit, it takes up your whole, it kills you. Now you got hour to 2 hours, depending on how many questions, and you're done. But you know what I'm talking about, Matt. And so what we do with our guys right now is every Monday we do a Zoom workout together. So our strength coach has given them a program, all body weight type stuff. And so every Monday he's on with them. All the guys get on. And believe me, scheduling is a nightmare for us because we've got one kid from Ukraine. We've got one kid from Australia. And so when it's 10 o'clock at night for the kid in Ukraine, it's 6 o'clock the next morning or 5 o'clock the next morning for the kid from Australia. Then we're trying to work around our guys who have jobs and stuff. So we're all over the map in terms of when we try to do this to get everybody there. And invariably, we're going to have one guy missing every now and then. And again, that's something that I just can't control right now because of the COVID stuff. And it's also part of what our roster is. I don't have 12 guys in one time zone. That makes it really easy. You can say we're going to do it 6 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock at night, and everybody can build their schedules around that. But we do the Zoom once a week where they do the workout. It's great having our strength coach on there. and then we'll talk afterwards about anything that's going on with campus. Certainly the last couple of weeks, we've had plenty to talk about in what's going on in the world today. And then we've also done one session of it, and we're going to do one each month here. So last month we did a session where I broke them into groups of 3 or 4, and they had to bring something to the group. It could have been leadership based, nutrition based, sleep, workout. I basically put them in charge of it. And then each group had to get together on their own and come up, hey, what's our topic going to be? What are we going to present? And, 5 minutes to 15 minutes, whatever they wanted to take. And then we would talk about it. So one group talked about sleep, and they did the research, and I think it opened their eyes about how many athletes really aren't getting enough sleep, and also how much time they waste during the day that's causing them not to get their sleep, and how organized they need to be to make sure that they're getting their sleep and be important. Another group talked about nutrition and how valuable that is. And then the last group talked about working out and how important it is to, again, go above and beyond what the expectations are from the coaches if you really want to get better. And they talked about, what they wanted to see this fall as a team, some of the guidelines that they want to do with workouts, and such as, hey, if I'm going to go work out, I got to call at least 2 other guys to come with me before I go on my own. It doesn't do me any good to go on my own all the time. We got a gun and all that stuff, that's fine. But I'm going to call 2 other guys to come with me to make sure they're getting better too. It's not just about me all the time. And so that was a really good session. And a couple of them already asked, hey, when are we doing the next one? Are we going to do the same groups and that type of stuff? So we're trying to do different things to stay in front of them as much as possible and keep them as involved as possible. But it's definitely a challenge right now. So.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Other questions on that type of stuff? Anything that you guys want to go, direction you guys want to go here? I can get into some X and O's. I can show you practice plans. I've got all that stuff ready. It's just what direction. Again, I was on one of these last week, and they just talked. It was Buzz Williams from Texas A&M. He just talked about how he plans his day, and it's ridiculous what all the organization and stuff that he does. Now, he's also got 13 guys working for him that can plan all that stuff for him and type all that stuff out for him. So it's not quite as realistic for us. And then Mendel's guy and my guy, who's the head coach for the Houston Rockets G League team, Mahmoud Abdel-Fattah, is Mo going to speak on this group, Mendel?
Oh, yeah, he's coming up in about 3 weeks.
Okay. So Mo spoke, and Mo's a guy that I recruited out of Chicago. He came here and played and went back to Chicago for a year, then came here, was an assistant for 6 years. And in 2 years already with the Vipers, he's went from being a part-time assistant to their head coach. And he's going to be on an NBA bench here soon. And the guy's unbelievable. You will learn a ton from that dude. But what I liked about those guys is they just say, hey, what questions do you have? What do you guys want to see? Because again, I can sit up here and spew stuff out, but I don't know if that's relevant to you guys. So I want to make it relevant to what you guys want to see.
So I would personally be very interested in one of 2 topics, like how you go about your practice planning, or like sort of how you design your offense, and if that is tailored year by year, like does it change, or do you run similar sets and try to recruit for the type of stuff that you run?
Okay. Let me show you an example of a practice plan that I do. And so typically how it works, let's see if I can find I don't know if I've got a good one in here, but all right. Can you guys see this okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is obviously later in the year and this past spring. So this last spring, we actually practiced from 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning. I just worked out. Normally, we're a 4 to 6 in the afternoon, but for whatever reason, our guys were able to arrange their schedules so that they didn't have class till 11. And this was actually a unbelievable schedule for all of us. I think they all loved it. For me personally, it was great because my daughter was a senior, so I didn't miss any of her games. I told my assistants ahead of time, I've already missed so many of her games. Like, guys, if she's playing on a Tuesday, I'm not recruiting. We play Fridays and Saturdays, so I was going to miss all of her Friday games anyway. But I told them, you guys are going to have to do the recruiting this year because this is my last chance to watch her. So we would practice in the morning, and the guys will start rolling into the gym about 8:15, 8:10, and we stretch at 8:30. So when they're in the gym, we try to work with them, grab a couple guys and get up extra shots, or work on some footwork stuff that we think they need. We stretch, and we do that as a group. We do that for 10 minutes. And again, that's a time where I try to talk to everybody individually. We do it in a circle. First, they do the dynamic stuff, and then when they do the stationary stretching in a circle, that's when I try to talk to everybody, and pretty loose. We're making fun of everybody, or they're making fun of me, whatever the case may be that day. And then we get into a shooting drill right away. And we have 8 baskets, which is a huge advantage for us. So partner shooting for us is, 2 guys will go to a basket, one with the ball, and they'll shoot for 40 seconds, and they switch. And we work on different shots. So it might be start out with 15-footers, and we might do shot fakes. We'll do threes. We'll do combinations where it's a 3, then a 2, then a 3. And then the last one, usually your choice, just try to get up as many shots as we can in those 10 minutes. And typically we'll rotate baskets after each time. So, I don't know how you guys are, but my guys are, they become victim to habit. They will start partnering up with the same guy every time, and they go to the same basket every time. And so we make them rotate baskets, and then at least once a week I'll say, okay, you can't go with the guy that you shot with the last 3 weeks. You have to have or last 3 times. You have to have a different partner. So that forces them to make sure that they're interacting with other guys, and you avoid the click type thing happening. And again, we've been really good about that. We're really intentional in our team building stuff to make sure that guys are with everybody, and it's not just, hey, the seniors and juniors do their thing, the freshmen and sophomores do their thing. When we get done with shooting, typically we do some sort of fast break transition drill. Now, in this particular practice, we didn't have one, but we've got, maybe 10 different transition drills that we'll run one of each day. Maybe it's the one where you start out with a free throw, it turns into 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3, 5-on-4, 5-on-5, and it turns into a game. So we do all sorts of different things, 3-man weave, 5-man weave, just something to get them moving, get the blood flowing. And then we'll get into a defensive drill. And again, this is later in the year, so we're cutting way back. You can see we're only on the floor. By the time we started at 8:40, we're off the floor at 10:05. So we're only on the floor for an hour and 20 minutes at this point in time. But we'll do a defensive drill here, offensive breakdown. A change drill is a transition defensive drill. Dog is our full court press. So we have different, dog 1 is a 1-2-1-1. Dog 2 is a 2-2-1. Dog 5 is man-to-man. So we work on that stuff every day. And then part of it too, we were playing Wayne State this week, and Wayne presses, so we were working against that as well. And then we went right into preparing for Wayne 14 and 15 versus Wayne. So 14 is where we're switching 1 through 4, and the 5-man stays at home. 15, we're switching everything. And then offensively, we'll get the last part there. We're going 5-on-5, and we convert on a miss. And we may go to convert twice. One of our favorite drills, 5-on-5 drills, and I got this from the head coach at Nebraska Omaha, is we call it the 70-70 game. So we start out, the 2 teams are 70-70, and we play to 74. So based on how it goes, you could be up 6 or down 6 or anywhere in between once you get to 74. Once a team gets to 74, you stop it, you put 2 minutes on the clock, and then you play it from there. So it becomes an end of game situation every time you play it. And we as coaches ref it. So we have them coach themselves, and it's amazing how dumb they can be at times. I mean, I love those guys, but my God, I just cringe at some of the things that they do. And we'll look at each other as coaches like, what are you doing? But it's a great teaching point because there's going to be times where either it's too loud or you don't have timeouts left. They're going to have to make decisions without you giving a whole lot of input. And so we're able to cover a lot of different situations in those 70-70 games. So we do that at least once a week, if not twice a week. And we may do it multiple times a day, depending on how it goes. And then, you know, again, they're playing for a down and back or a killer or push-ups or something. And again, you see the competitiveness come out in those guys. And we mix it up every day. You know, maybe we still have the first team going against the second team. But guess what? Our starting point guard, Trey, you can't play this game because you fouled out or you got hurt. Or so you force them to do different things during those times and be in different situations, you know, so that they have to make decisions. So that's one of my favorite 5-on-5 drills we have because it forces those guys to think, and you learn real quickly who your leaders are, because when they're trying to figure out what they want to do offensively and defensively in the huddle before you start the game, you see who's gonna do the talking, who they're gonna listen to, and then again, just the decision making that happens down the stretch is crazy. And then you can also control how many fouls you want. You know, are the teams in the bonus, double bonus, or do they have fouls to give? Do they have timeouts? So it gives you a lot of different opportunities there. And then we end up with free throws, like I said, every day to try to simulate that stuff as much as possible. So that's a typical practice plan for us. When we get done with practice, then Menelik, we would meet as coaches, whether it's, you know, 8:30 to 10:30 or 4 to 6 at night. We will meet real quick and just say, hey, what do we like today? What do we think we need to work on tomorrow? And we're, again, a little different because we play Friday, Saturday. We're preparing for 2 teams throughout the week. But our experience has been you have to really focus on the Friday game. You can't really worry about the Saturday game. And so whoever has the Saturday scout, by Tuesday, they've got to tell me, hey, this team plays a lot of zone. So, okay, we got to work in some extra zone work this week under the guys that the team on Friday is going to play it or whatever. Or the team on Saturday is going to press us. Well, okay, we need to get some more dog work in that week. But really our focus is on Friday night's game throughout the week. And hopefully your system prepares you for the quick turnaround on Saturday.
We do the exact same thing. All of our games are scheduled Friday, Saturday, and we prepare for the Friday. And then Saturday, It's like it can be a crapshoot sometimes, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, Coach.
Go ahead. No.
I'm very curious. Will you provide this practice plan to? I would assume yes, all of your coaches, but would you provide it to your players in advance as well?
Yeah, because here at the bottom, so we put it up every day before practice. There's a thought for the day, and they have to memorize it. And then they have to be able, after we get done stretching, or I might blow the whistle right before we stretch. I mix it up each day a little bit, keep on guard. And hey, what's the thought for the day? And they have to be able to tell me whoever I call on. If they don't, that guy's got 10 push-ups or a down and back or whatever, or we do it as a team. But then, you know, if there's something to talk about with that thought for the day, then we talk about it. Sometimes it's just this simple, you know. You don't have to spend a lot of time talking about it, but they see the practice plan every day going into it. Now, there's been times during the year where they get a little too comfortable and then we don't post it because they'll be grumbling when they come into practice about, well, why are we going for an hour and 40 minutes today when we play in 2 days and it's late February? And it's because we had something to work on, or it's because they were bad the day before and we didn't get covered what we needed to, whatever. So there are times where we don't post it because they have become accustomed and get comfortable and sort of keep them on their toes. We won't post it for a week or so. But normally we post it every day for them. And we also have kind of the schedule. We give them a monthly calendar at the beginning of each month that has all of our practice times on there, knowing that sometimes it can change a little bit. But each day on there, at least for the next week, they know for sure what's going on also. But then we'll meet, like I said, we'll meet as coaches and figure out what we want to work on the next day. I'll plan the practice plan. I'll send it to the coaches and say, hey, is this okay? Anything you guys want to tweak? Because one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and I got this from Krzyzewski, is that if you surround yourself with people better than you, you're going to experience things that maybe weren't meant for you, but because you're hitched to your pony to that guy, you get to do that, experience that. And he was referencing Shane Battier, and he said, you know, it may not have been my time to win a national championship, but because I was with Shane Battier, it was his time to win a national championship. I got to win it. And I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, because I know I'm not the smartest guy. So I make sure my assistants have a lot of input. And again, having been an assistant for a long time, I know how valuable that opportunity and having that stuff is. So I really rely on my assistants a lot for, hey, what do you think for practice today? What do you think about this or that? Or, you know, what kind of drills should we get? You know, and those guys are constantly bringing me stuff all the time, whether it's for practice or for half court sets.
Coach, sorry, I'm monopolizing questions a bit here, but I just wanted to jump in again. You did mention you do like a monthly training plan. Do you do anything for the course of the year? And if you do you, for your individual practices, modulate your volume, intensity, all that based upon where you are in some sort of, like are you periodizing basically is what I'm asking?
Well, I think if I'm understanding you correctly, you know, as we get later in the year, like here, we're only practicing for an hour and 20 minutes. If I showed you a practice plan from November, it's going to be 2 hours long, or an hour and 45 to hour and 50. Most of our drills are within that 10-minute framework. You know, here later in the year, when we're doing 5-on-5 stuff, we may get into 15-minute segments, but most of the time we don't spend more than 10 minutes on a segment. We move on to something else and maybe come back to it. Same thing goes with our weight program. You know, we start in September 3 times a week, and they're in the weight room for about an hour. And we'll do that even when we start practice on October 15th. We'll continue that maybe the first week or two of practice. But as we get into November, now we'll cut it back to 2 days a week. And we significantly limit their leg lifting at that point. And our strength coach handles all this, but we are in communication about it. And our lifts during the season are more about flexibility, maintaining their strength, and injury prevention. It's not like it is in the fall, or certainly in the spring, where we're trying to add bulk and muscle at that point in time. So from that training standpoint, that's what we do. You know, our individual workouts in the fall, we do a lot of conditioning as well. We don't condition in the spring. We just do individual workouts. You know, because to me, there's no reason to run them in the spring. Their legs are shot by then anyway. You just want to make sure that they're staying fresh and work on some stuff that they need to work on. So does that answer your question, Malik? Am I hitting
Yes,
that right?
it does. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Coach, address for me, what's the recruiting process for you with the Huskies? What does that look like?
Well, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all thing there, Mendel. For us, again, we're always constantly looking for guys. And my assistants, yes, that's a their primary responsibility is to find guys to bring to me. But having done it for 17 years as an assistant, I still am very actively trying to find guys as well, because the two most important things you do as a head coach, besides your day-to-day stuff with your guys, is your scheduling and your recruiting. It doesn't matter how good a coach you are, XO, all that stuff. If you don't have the dudes, you're not going to be successful. You got to have dudes. And to me, the hardest thing is finding guys that are going to be committed to what you want your program to look like. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It gets so much harder to build a program now than it was before, because kids, you know, it used to be 15, 20 years ago, there was a stigma when you transfer. There's no stigma now. It's almost expected. 15, 20 years ago, no social media, so no one knew who was offering who. Now, all of a sudden, you offer a kid, everybody in the world knows it. And that hurts you, because now all of a sudden, you're recruiting 3 kids for the same position, and you call the 3rd kid to offer him, and he's like, well, you already offered 2 other kids. Does that mean I'm the 3rd choice? And even if that's not the way you're looking at it, that's their perception. So it makes it a lot harder. And you have to be, in my mind, a little bit more creative in how you're going to do things, and be aware of what social media does. And then the last part is that there are so many people in these kids' ears now, you know, and again, we had kids that had great freshman and sophomore years that had great junior and senior years. Now you have to worry about if a kid has a great freshman and sophomore year, is he going to bounce and go Division I? Or even after his freshman year, is he going to bounce, go JUCO to try to go Division I? And so the recruiting thing, Mendel, you have to try to identify kids that are going to be committed to your program for 4 years or 3 years or 2 years, depending on what their situation is. And the other thing is, again, my boss wasn't a big transfer guy. The landscape has changed. You have to be involved with transfers or you're never going to survive. We graduated in 2019. We graduated our all-time leading scorer, the best player to ever play here. He was a Division I transfer. And the reason we got him to stay for 4 years is he burned his redshirt year at a Division I. And so if he transferred, he was going to lose a year. And so I never worried about Gage bouncing, but the dude scored 2,600 points and went to Europe, and he's going to make a lot of money playing over the next couple of years. He certainly was a Division I player, but certainly by the time he left. And those guys, if you get those guys as freshmen now, the chances of you keeping them through their senior year are really hard, because it doesn't matter how good a relationship you have with that kid or he has with his teammates. If his parents or handlers are in his ear, that people that he's known and trusted for years are in his ear telling him, hey, you can go do this, you can go do this, then it makes it hard. So the recruiting part, Mendel, you have to identify kids that you think are going to be committed to you, unless you're just going to flat out go the Duke route and just go one and dones all the time, understanding that you're going to lose kids after every year, transfers or whatever. So it's for us, it's a team process. All three of us are, and again, at the end of the day, I have the final veto. But if my two assistants are like, this is a kid that we really like and we gotta go after him, maybe I don't initially like him, but those guys may wear me down and like, yep, you're right. I was wrong. He's a kid that we should go after. But I'm not going to take a kid just to take a kid either. I mean, I'm not going to take a kid just because those two guys like him and I don't. At the end of the day, I'll use my veto power as a head coach. Oh, man, look, you got the boss with you now.
Absolutely. She's a special guest on a lot of these. She likes jumping in.
Good for her. You better enjoy those days quick, because we're going to be empty nesters, and I'm amazed at how fast it goes. So enjoy it while you can.
Thank you. I cherish every moment. I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, it is now 10:55. Coach, we have about 5 minutes of your time. Anything that you would like to, any last words you want to leave us with? It's all on you.
Well, first off, thank you for letting me be on here. And again, I'll talk as long as you guys want to talk. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can give you my cell phone here if you want. And feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm going to show you.
Matt got his cell phone ready, Coach.
All right, it's 320-267-1297. And where did I go here with? Okay, I'm just going to show you. We have Fast Draw, and so this is kind of an example of all the sets that we've run this past year, and I don't even have them all in there yet, out of bounds and stuff. So we are a very much up-tempo team. We average around 82 or 83 points a game, and we, if we don't get anything out of transition, we have a couple different motion offenses that we run. We start with the high ball screen and then just play. And then we also have a bunch of different sets that we run, especially if we have a guy with a hot hand or if we think we have a mismatch. So we have a variety of different sets that we run. And again, like these Mavs sets here, these are all out of our motion that starts with the high ball screen, but then we have 4 or 5 different actions out of there where maybe we're going to reject the screen. In this case, we reject it, or we flip the screen. So we have a ton of different things that we run out of there. We have a spread offense with basically a no post offense. And then, like I said, we have a bunch of different quick hitters that we run to make sure that we're getting guys the shots that we need. So If you guys want access to any of that stuff, feel free to let me know. And again, just keep me posted on anything that I can do to help you guys.
You and I are gonna talk later this year.
Yeah. So, anything else from you guys' standpoint? I hope you found it beneficial.
Well, I know at least, besides myself, I know at least one guy that's gonna be reaching out to you. So, again, Coach, I greatly appreciate it, man. It's fun. I enjoy doing this because I know the guys that are logged in are guys that are trying to get better for themselves and for their players wherever they're gonna be. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time.
Anytime, my man. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, Coach. Have
Thanks,
a great rest of your week, my man.
Yep, you guys too. Thanks, guys. Good luck to you guys.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thanks.